I'm going to speak to you about augmented reality. And the thing that you should be looking at, since you're all vision experts, or at least interested in vision, is how critically important vision is to augmented reality. I have 4 takeaways for you. And Lars told me that if I succeed in getting these 4 points across to you, he'll give me back my cat and let me leave. So I'm counting on you to help me out here. The main point is that AR is many things. It's not a thing. You can't go out and buy 3 pounds of AR. It's just not possible. So AR is a very, very broad-based science, and I want you to leave knowing that. It's really difficult to do. We have some slight examples of AR today, but we don't have the ultimate example, and I'll explain that later. And I'll show you some AR developments to date that are very promising. There are early developments, but they still look quite good. Excuse me. And then last, and I think sometimes most importantly, is the social impact of what AR will do to and for our lives. Okay. Now, before I dive into it, I want to give you a little background for how we got here. And it's important to appreciate this because as scientists and researchers, we live with this technology, and we tend to take it for granted. People who are not in the scientific or technological fields take it for granted only because it's just part of their lives. But it started really with transistors. I think transistors were the major turning point for us in all technology. And just looking back from 1971, when transistors started to become commercially available, you can see that the feature size was 10 microns. And compare that to today when we're approaching 5 nanometers. That's almost 10,000 to 1 change in just those few years. In 2010, we started building transistors that were smaller, that are smaller, than viruses. And every time I say that, and every time I think about that, it just astounds me, because viruses are such mysterious things to us, we can't see them, and yet we're building computing devices that would fit inside of one. So I mentioned to you that augmented reality is many things, and I hope that this eye chart works out. Here we go. The one I want to call your attention to is the one in the middle, which doesn't have a red line around it. I apologize for the artwork. And the point being there is that this is an example of AR. The first consumer awareness of AR happened way back in the, maybe the 80s, when you started to see scrimmage lines magically appear in football games. And that is an AR application. And that was one of the first ones. Weather maps were another one. And so we've been living with augmented reality for quite some time. The chart is designed to also call your attention to the bottom 2 parts, which are right here, which have to do with where you are. And that's one of the major challenges of augmented reality, is how do I make this thing work inside and outside? So reducing it a little bit further and focusing my talk, which is 25 minutes, I'll introduce you to one of my favorite terms. I've been studying augmented reality since the early 90s, so that's a little over 20 years, and I can't possibly tell to you all in 25 minutes, and that is a blivet. You'll be happy to know this word. Write it down, blivet. What is a blivet? A blivet is 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag, and that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try and stuff 10 pounds into 5 pounds. So to do that, I'm going to concentrate primarily on glasses, augmented reality glasses. It's one from, you remember the last slide, it's one of many categories of augmented reality. But this is the one that's going to impinge on most of the people in the world when we finally get it working. Now, to be successful and to be accepted, augmented reality has to be attractive. It has to be acceptable, I should say. And that means that we can't walk around looking like a space alien or some geeky nerd that likes to show off his technology. This stuff has to be normal. Otherwise, you'll get rejections. There were a lot of stories, I'm sure you know some of them, about people who wore the early Google Glasses, and they were, abused in certain cases. I have a friend who's a very important person in augmented reality, Steve Mann, and he actually had physical discomfort in a restaurant, McDonald's of all places, in Paris. So they have to look reasonably good, and they have to do an extraordinary number of things. They have to they have to know where you are, and where you are is a variety of parameters. It's where you are in the world, where you are facing in terms of the North Pole, how you are standing, and where you are moving. All of those things go into where you are, and it's not trivial to do that. And then it has to be what you're seeing. Here's where the cameras come into play. You have to have depth sensing cameras. You have to have, or you should have, I say, not all of these will be built equally, IR glasses, excuse me, IR sensors for it. You have to be able to sense ambient lighting conditions, and also you would like to have or should have a rear camera. So there's going to be a lot of cameras associated in a pair of glasses that consumers will wear, that they will be comfortable wearing in public without drawing attention or being conspicuous. And then you have to know what you're looking at. To do that, the augmented reality system has to be able to see where your eyes are. If you glance out the corner of your eyes because you're distracted by something or you want to see something, the augmented reality system has to know that you're doing that so that whatever data it's presenting to you at that time is appropriately fixed in space to accommodate where your eyes are going. And you have to be able to hear things. You have to be able to hear information coming to you from the augmented reality system, but at the same time, you have to hear what's going on in the real world. So you can't wear big muffin earplugs. You shouldn't even wear little earplugs. You want to have your ears unencumbered. And to do that, the best technique right now is what's called bone conduction. And I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to experience that, but if you haven't, I encourage you to, because it's an amazing experience. When your entire head, by the way, is a diaphragm that works as a microphone. And so your entire head hears things, not just your ears. And so with the bone conduction system, it sounds like your head is full of sound. It's really wonderful. I like it a lot. You also need direction on the sound, and that has to involve letting you know who is speaking, whether it's you speaking or whether someone is speaking to you. And then you have to know what you're doing. Are you standing still? Are you lying down? Are you falling down? Are you running? Are you going up steps, et cetera, et cetera? All of that has to do with how the augmented reality delivers the appropriate information to you in a given situation. And obviously then you have to be able to transfer data, both coming and going, and that's going to require interconnection with network systems. So it's a lot of stuff that goes into an augmented reality headset, and time permitting, we could talk about how to design such a thing. But the other thing to keep in mind is how do you see this? And visualize in the simplest example that it's a pair of glasses and there's some type of a display system in those glasses. Now, just as an exercise, I'm sure you've done this earlier, you can take a finger and bring it towards your nose and see when you can't see it or when you see two fingers. And that has to do with your ability to accommodate and your focal distance. Now to consider the problem that I'm looking at the back of the room being blinded by these lights, and at the same time I want to be able to see my fingers here because my fingers represent a screen that's got information on it. It's difficult, but we are such amazing machines, we humans, and our eyes are so amazing, we can do it. And we can do it from a variety of mechanisms that take place, not the least of which is static eye movement, which our eyes are constantly jerking back and forth looking for differentials. The other thing you'll hear about this is the field of view. You can put your arms out like this and still see your fingers. I can see my fingers even though I'm looking straight ahead. And even back to here, right? So over 180 degrees field of view awareness we have as sensing creatures. Well, do I need this much field of view if I just want to look at a screen right here? And the answer is obviously no, I don't. So the arguments about field of view with regard to an augmented reality pair of glasses or a headset or a helmet or whatever you have are kind of a false argument. It's a marketing complaint to try and criticize one company over another. This is the basic concept of augmented reality, specifically with glasses. The idea is that you'll be wearing a pair of glasses. We all wear glasses now. We all wear at least sunglasses. Many of us wear corrective lenses, so the idea of someone wearing glasses is not unique. But now we'll be able to wear glasses that'll bring us additional information. And as I mentioned, actually seeing it, though, while it's up close, that's going to be part of the challenge. You can't overburden it. I can't fill up this entire field of view here with information, because then I will lose the real world, and that's exactly what we don't want. One of the other things is the accommodation. I mentioned this already. I probably should have left this slide out, and this is just basically where's my focal point going to be. I'm going to skip over this. I'm probably running a little bit long. I'm going to skip over this, he said. All right, just more of the same. I'm going to skip over this. So where are you? Maria talked about this a little bit, about how to figure out where we are. And this is the 6 degrees of freedom that you hear us talking about. And this is how we determine poise. And poise is important with regard to what we're seeing and how we're seeing it and where we are. Now, accelerometers, which we have in our smartphones that you're well aware of, do a very, very good job of measuring differentials. If I do this, the accelerometer can get it. But if I just stand here, the accelerometer has no idea of where I am. So to do that, to find out where I am, we have to have additional devices like GPS and a magnetometer. GPS will, you know what GPS does, I don't have to explain that. And the magnetometer, of course, will keep us focused north. Believe it or not, you may know this, you may not, your smartphone has all of these things. So your smartphone's already a very good augmented reality device. When you build all that, it's called, come on, work, or don't. Well, it's a localized mapping system, and I was hoping to make a picture here. Okay, don't move. This is an illustration of a SLAM system, and when augmented reality was first being developed and being experimented with, we used to put little markers up, little QR markers up. And they were fiducials for us, and we would use them as a way of getting a fix on the world. In other words, if I wanted to make something in augmented reality, something appear on this table here, I first of all have to figure out where that table is, and I have to have a means of locking onto that table because I'm going to move. Even though I think I'm standing perfectly still right now, I am moving. I can't help it. It's just the way we are built. We move. So the way we did it in the old days was we'd put a marker there, and that was our trick. But you can't get markers everywhere. You can put them in magazines. That's helpful. You can put them on street signs even. That would be nice. But you can't count on that. So we came up with better techniques of finding and creating our own maps using cameras. And the trick is not hard to figure out. Basically what you do is you look for differentials. So you see that there's corners, there's differentials in light, and wherever we can get a differential, our human bodies are differential machines. We live and die by differentials. We get differentials in sound, differentials in vision, differentials in smell, certainly in taste and temperature. And if we don't get those things, we cease to exist. So building a differential device to build a map is how we can now make augmented reality work in the real world, in real time, without any control of the environment. Now, you have to be able to know what is going on around you when you're wearing augmented reality. You've seen, I'm sure, the videos where people are taking their smartphones and walking off a cliff or into a pole or something like that. Well, you don't want to do that wearing glasses, augmented reality glasses. So you have to be able to hear things. You have to be able to hear if there's sirens and things of that nature going on. And you have to be able to hear things for voice recognition. I mentioned to you that the augmented reality system has to know whether you're asking a question or someone is asking you a question. So it has to know who is the speaker. And you have to know the direction of the sounds, and like I mentioned, whether they're alarms or vehicles, or perhaps it's a storm. Maybe there's a hurricane coming, or a lightning storm, or worse, a tornado or something. All of those are very unique sounds. So here or there. Translations is one of the big things that we're all looking forward to. We've all been in, most of us I'm sure have been in foreign countries where we didn't speak the language and couldn't read the signs and struggled to get from point A to point B. Now with augmented reality, we'll be able to look at street signs and know, hey, we really are lost. Or you'll be able to go up to someone and ask them a question, and they will give you an answer, and you'll be able to translate that and understand what they're telling you. That's the terrible thing about learning a few words in a foreign language. You think you're so clever, and then you say something in that language, and then people answer you, and you're going, oh, what the hell is he talking about? And then who are these people? They're not space aliens. These are World War I German aircraft spotters. What they're doing is they're listening for the engine, and they have binoculars on their eyes, and they evidently like each other. So the Germans during World War I encouraged fraternization. Come on. So you have to see the real world, as I mentioned. You would like to do face recognition. You need to do face recognition. And you want to see unreal things. Things that are not there are what you're looking for with an augmented reality system. And obviously the kind of information you can get is going to help you get from point A to point B. It's going to translate stuff for you, as I mentioned. And you also can have fun with it. I'm sure you all know about Pokemon. In fact, I love Pokemon because I've been, like I say, writing and studying AR for quite some time. And people will say to me, what is this AR stuff? And now I just say, Pokemon. And they all go, oh, yeah, I get it, yeah. But it's also to help you find dangerous things. One of the applications in augmented reality is for first responders who will be wearing a helmet of augmented reality, and it will give them a heat map, a literal heat map, not a statistical heat map, of what's going on behind a room that they can't see. The same thing could be held true for you wearing a personalized augmented reality, is that it could help you see, here's where the IR sensors come in, could help you see mists that could be dangerous to you, fumes and things, chemical output, and temperature, of course. And the reason you want a camera behind you is because you want to be able to see behind you. You want to know if there's a car coming that might run over you, or perhaps you've lost your child or your pet, or maybe you've dropped something. I lost my phone on the plane coming here, and I was having a heart attack, and they found it. It was like, you go from deep despair to great joy in minutes. So how do we communicate with it? Now, this is going to be one of the trickiest parts. And the reason this is going to be difficult is it comes back to we cannot be conspicuous about this, and there are other requirements. The problem is that the augmented reality system, the display could be the user interface, and that's going to create both good news and bad news for it. So how do we talk to it? Hello, Google. Hey, AR. This will probably work because we've now been trained, we've now learned socially how to deal with people who are talking to no one who is there. When I was a kid, my parents would point out to me as we'd see somebody doing that, and they'd go, just avoid him because he's talking to some mystical person. We don't want to be around him. Now we all do that. Come on. So one of the proposals has been to tap it on the side to communicate with it. That's kind of obnoxious. I don't think I want to walk around seeing somebody do this. So that's calling attention to yourself. That's not going to work. Another one is a hand controller, holding a little thing like this. That's not going to work because now your hands aren't free. So you need your hands to do things in your normal life. Then there's gestures. Not going to work. Who wants to be around somebody doing this? One AR company, which has unfortunately failed, called Meta, had a system that did do that. And if you're sitting in an office and looking at computer screens in your augmented reality, that's okay, but you wouldn't want to go outside and do it. Blinking. Blinking was an experiment that was tried by the Air Force. And when jet planes started becoming really, really fast, it became very apparent that a fighter pilot couldn't deal with all the things that he or she had to deal with and defend or attack. And so to reduce the response time, they experimented with blinking to fire weapons. And so information would come in bogey at 10 o'clock, and you'd go and fire your gun at it, right? Except that people normally blink. So this just didn't work out too well. And then one that's been experimented with, doesn't look like it's going to show much promise, is brain waves, and that would require you to wear a band or something around your head, which could be socially acceptable from a decoration idea. So I think it's going to end up being talking. I think that's the way we're going to deal with the augmented reality systems. Show me a map to the subway station. If I said that in public, you might think I was just talking to my phone, and you'd probably let me get away with it and not step across the street as my parents advised me. Now, the left question is, how is this going to impact us socially? And time permitting, I'd like to spend a little bit of time on this because I think this is going to be one of the big payoffs for us with augmented reality. Aside from all the things I've already said, we will now have basically a personal black box. Black box, most of you probably know, is the little recording device that they put in airplanes and some trucks and buses that keeps track of what the device was doing, what the platform was doing at any given time, so that you can reconstruct any problems that happened. Well, if we were wearing augmented reality glasses, which were recording everything that we said and everything that was being said around us, we now have the ultimate perfect witness. It totally eliminates he said, she said. And if we have to deal with people who are threatening to us, and I'll include the police in that, where the police always seem to have the benefit of the doubt, if we now have a recording of it, a record of it, as to who did what, the police will behave differently towards us. But we will all behave differently towards each other if we have such a system, if it is also combined with a database about people. One of the first uses of augmented reality was, was to help people remember other people. I have a hell of a time trying to remember people's names, even my own kids' names. And I stupidly named, I have 3 daughters, I stupidly named them all with the letter M. So I have a Marie, a Meredith, and a, see? And I do that, right? I used to go down, and then they help me out and give me their names. So remembering names is a challenge for a lot of people. Augmented reality will help you overcome that, but no more than that, it will make you the kind of person people want to be around, because if I come up to you and I talk to you about you, now I'm interesting because I'm talking about you. And so that's a social experiment that's been conducted with AR, and it's very, very high payoff. But it also has the potential of being intrusive. If everybody is going to know everything about everybody, as we almost do now with social media, how is that going to make us feel? And simultaneously, how do we deal with the influx and perhaps the overwhelming amount of information that will be brought to us, unsolicited perhaps, about advertisements? Let's say I'm walking down the street with my augmented reality glasses on, and I say, where's the nearest Starbucks? I not only get an ad for Starbucks and directions, hopefully, but I also get an ad for a bakery or maybe a dress shop, because they think I'm going to spill coffee on myself and I need to get a new shirt. So the potential there for getting more information than we want is something that has to be considered and mitigated. And so will we lose our identity? And that's an interesting question. He's still sitting, so I'm running good here. So here's some customer developments that are underway. This is LaForge glasses. These are almost ready to go to market. LaForge started out as an optical glass company and added augmented reality to it. So they started out with the concept of making something that was attractive. Here's another one. And you look at the price there, that you can buy that right now. This is one that's being sold in a couple of stores, one in Brooklyn and one in Seattle. It's a little expensive, but again, look at it. It's attractive. You wouldn't be ashamed to wear that in public, and that could be a corrective lens also, by the way. Here's an example of wearing augmented reality that will help people who have eye problems see things better. So this is a case of not seeing things that aren't there, but rather seeing things that are there that you can't see. Here's an example of using sound only. So there's no visual aspect to this. This will give you information about where you are and what's going on, but it'll give it to you through a sound system. And these are all commercially available right now, so you can go out and buy these. In the, this was working so well. In the industrial side, we have a little bit different look and feel because the environments are different and because the demands are different. So these are glasses that will be used, are being used, I should say, in the industrial area. They're more expensive, they're more cumbersome, they're heavier, but they do a different job. And so the consumer glasses will feed into these industrial glasses and make them better also. Some of them have to be safety glasses, for example, and so that adds a little bit of weight to it. I mentioned to you about the helmets. That has to be, you have to be able to get hit in the head with a baseball bat for a helmet to qualify to be a helmet. Come on. There we go. And then I'll close with this, is that Lars mentioned I'm an expert in graphics, and I believe that you can't have too many pixels. You just can't. And just to show you, this is what 50 million pixels look like. And just to give you a calibration point, if you've forgotten, an HD screen is 2 million pixels. So this is the equivalent of 25 HD screens. This is my workstation. I look at this every day. That's a 4K screen on each side and an 8K screen in the front. When I'm not working, I play computer games. I'm proud to say that. And this is another example of a big screen. This is 49 inches. That screen is that big. And it's 7.6 million pixels. And that's great stuff. But you can't take it on the road with you. And when I'm on the road, I dearly miss these big screens. I sit in a hotel room or on an airplane with a laptop trying to do on it what I normally do on this. Well, what if I had augmented reality glasses and everywhere was a screen? Everywhere I looked was a screen. What if I could create a dome that gave me all of the stuff that I have on my workbench right now and more? Wouldn't that be a wonderful experience? Wouldn't that be the greatest thing, to be able to have all the data that you ever wanted to look at available to you simultaneously wherever you happen to look? That's my dream. I hope to see that. So that's it for me.